Hello, welcome to Coffee with Kathleen, the start of the year version. And I'm just really, really happy to be here with you in the new year. Such a pleasure that I've been doing this podcast now for the last couple of years and get to hang out with you, drink a cup of coffee, have a little fun conversation. So I know every single one of you is probably raring to go. You're in January, you've got all these intentions, goals, or something about the fresh start of a new year that brings you into that space. But what if things aren't going exactly the way that you want them to? Or what if you were mid-goal and something didn't work out? Or what if things changed and your goals had to change as a result? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of you or many of you might know that I had very much of a recovery year in 2025. The first thing that happened is I had a scheduled procedure. I have lost a lot of weight over the last several years as part of my journey to being healthy. And I had a skin removal surgery. And that was something that I had predicted that I knew was going to happen. I scheduled it, something that I wanted to do. There's something about really being able to leave behind the things that you want to leave behind. And look, for the last 3 years, I've been really at it. I've been working to increase my level of fitness. I went, and ran the first half marathon that I've run in many years. I've done half marathons before, but it'd been quite a long time since I'd done one. So I went and I did that. And then I was like, ooh, maybe I could run a full marathon. So I went and I did that. And then I was thinking, ooh, maybe I'll run another one, a more challenging one, right? We're always moving the goalpost out so that we stay interested and engaged in our lives and the things that matter to us. I thought part of that is really getting my body into a space where it operates effectively for me. And part of that is being comfortable and being comfortable doing all of the things that I want to do, and removal of excess skin was part of that. So I was really looking forward to it. So I did one last workout before that procedure. And that one last workout was a yoga workout, which you think of yoga as being gentle, and it can be, but it can also be pretty strenuous as well. And I do hot yoga because I just actually really, really love being warm. One of the real pleasures in life, and particularly if you're in winter in December and it's cold outside and you go into a hot yoga studio, it's like you just blossom. All your little internal flowers go, ooh, it's nice and warm in here. So I was really looking forward to it. And on Friday nights, there's a gentleman who offers these classes who is absolutely fantastic. He was in the military for many years and a police officer for many years. And he learned this way of handling his stress. And he is incredibly deep and beautiful as a human being. And I couldn't wait to take his class. Well, he so hypnotized me with all of the stories and things that he was telling us as we were doing the yoga that I pushed it a little too hard. And one thing, about my body is it's not very flexible. So the yoga really is something important for me to engage in, but I also have to be careful about what I can really do and what I really can't do. Well, anyway, I felt like I had pushed it too far. One of my knees was kind of aching when I exited the studio, but I thought, oh, well, I've just strained a muscle or something like that. I'm not going to be working out very much or a whole lot for the next 6 to 8 weeks while I recover from my procedure anyway. So whatever, life is fine. When you get to a certain age and you work out a lot, your body always has some twinge or some ache or something. And, it's just something that you work through. And so I wasn't overly concerned about it. But what happened over the next 6 to 8 weeks is it really didn't improve. It was a pain in the back of my knee, actually. And it really didn't get any better, even with all the laying and sitting around and stuff that I was doing. So I was like, okay, well, it's just not getting better. I don't know what it is, but, probably I need to go for a chiropractic alignment or something. I'll figure that out. And then in the meantime, I went to Amsterdam with my son, which was such a lot of fun. It was day one. As these things turn out, we actually went to a casino in Amsterdam and we gambled a little bit. And I took a fun video of me winning a jackpot, and I won 650 euros. And so we were on cloud nine. We'd won a little money. And so we went into this park in Amsterdam, and there was a dude there with a boombox, and he turned it on, and I don't even know. But it just takes this much music for me to want to dance around. I am that person in the grocery store. Love me or hate me, but I'm dancing in line. And so I started, just kind of dancing around. And then most of my dancing, honestly, consists of me either awkwardly, like kind of moving like this, or jumping up and down. So I started jumping up and down, and, we had gotten in a lot of walking that day. So actually my knee was kind of bothering me, but again, I was ignoring it. And when I came down on the ground, I came down awkwardly on my right leg, and that's the one that was hurting. It's also my dominant leg, which is a good thing to know. Anyway, I came down on that, and I heard in my head this loud pop, and all of a sudden my leg didn't work anymore. It wasn't even that it was so painful. It was like I literally couldn't put any weight on it. I was really scared, and I was in the middle of a park. So I sent my son out and I said, hey, you've got to get me a cane. I've got to find a way to get out of this park so I can get to an emergency room because my leg has stopped working. And so then I was just sitting in this park while my son ran around Amsterdam trying to figure it out. And he went to a couple of drugstores, and he didn't find a cane, but he did find a sturdy umbrella. So with one arm on his shoulder and the other arm using the sturdy umbrella like a crutch, I managed to get out of the park, which we were about a mile into the center of this large park in Amsterdam. So we managed to get out of the park, and then we were able to call an Uber, everybody's favorite a thing, right? So, to get to the hospital. So you don't have to pay the fees for an ambulance. You just take an Uber. Anyway, I took an Uber to the emergency room, and there they said, oh, well, likely this is a soft tissue injury. There's nothing we can do. That'll be 400 euros, please. And I said, oh, okay. Well, do you have crutches or anything? And they said, sure, for another 50 euros. So I ended up spending most of my gambling winnings there in the ER in Amsterdam. Obviously, I finished my vacation because that's the sort of person that I am. And then when I got back to the United States, what I learned is that I had torn the meniscus in my knee. And there were a couple of different options that I had for fixing it. One was to simply allow them to kind of clean it up, in which case I'd be right as rain in 3 or 4 weeks. But I would definitely have arthritis, and I'd have a lot less cushioning in my knee. And that would probably create other problems where I might need, a knee replacement in the next 3 or 4 years, especially because, as many of you know, I do a lot of running and all that. So anyhow, the doctor said, what he really recommended for me was a meniscus root repair. So that takes a lot longer to heal. But the good news is that once it does, you're essentially sort of back to normal, or back to the state that you were in before you had the procedure. And so that began sort of a couple of months of waiting for the surgery to happen. So being injured, being on crutches, or walking, but with kind of a lot of pain. And then moving into the phase where I had the surgery, that was beginning of August. And then it's a 6 to 9 month recovery time. So, being on crutches then for 8 weeks, getting off the crutches and being on a brace for another 4 weeks, and then getting the brace off, and starting to amp up the levels of what I was able to do. So what we have a tendency to do, I think, is we think about recovery as a thing that is a setback. That's something that we have to go through because we're trying to get back to where we were. But at some point in this whole process, I thought, what if I just think about recovery, and each week what the capabilities are as the thing that is worth doing, the thing that's worth engaging in, the thing that's worth paying attention to. And I think about recovery as its own thing and its own set of goals, rather than thinking, okay, well, I'm trying to get back to marathon status, right? And so this is like my hurdle or my bump along the road, and just thinking about this being the road that I'm on. So I've talked about my injury a little bit because it did kind of consume me for the year in many, many ways, or most of the year in many ways. But also, just thinking about how can I be the best at recovery there's ever been. And just really thinking about how that slowdown and how that process could really be amazing and magnificent for me. So I'm still not at that 6-month mark, but I am in a place where every single week I feel myself becoming more and more capable. And I'm really paying attention to what that feels like, what it's possible for me to do, celebrating wins that even though I've been here before, right? So on my fitness journey, like I'm not able to do things that I was able to do before I injured myself in this moment. But every day feels like a new unfolding of something new I'm able to do compared to the day before. So I'm choosing to live in the present and not mourning the sort of loss of the self that I had before, but instead celebrating the self I have today and the self that I will have tomorrow, because I'm taking all of the actions that are important. So recently I visited my doctor, and I, had him evaluating sort of my progress and things like that. And he said, "My goodness, you are recovering like a professional athlete," which most of the people that get meniscus root repairs are professional athletes, because they have to in order to be able to return to peak athletic form or whatever, rather than getting the more simple procedure. And for a lot of people, the more simple procedure just makes sense for them and their lifestyle. But, I instead have taken the more difficult path toward, hopefully a better long-term outcome. And just thinking about that and thinking about what that looks like and how often have I done that in my life, and how often has that been the right answer, and what that means for me. And it's been a very spiritual year. It's been an opening and a receiving for just what's true today. I listen to a lot of podcasts and things like that about running when I run. And one of the running podcasts would always say, like, today might not be your best run. Today's legs might not be yesterday's legs. But whatever today's legs are, let's just celebrate sort of what your legs are able to do. And I knew about having recovery days and slower runs and all of that. And, I'd say I had an off day. But what if every day was just an on day, and it just was what was possible for that day? And so it's completely reframed my brain around what I'm able to do, or how I'm able to think about it. And sometimes what we call a step back, it's not a step back at all. It's still a step forward. It's just a different kind of step. And so rather than looking at this as a year full of setbacks, it's instead a year full of lessons, a year full of possibilities that gave me new ways of thinking about my body, thinking about things I'm capable of, thinking about what I want to do today, or even what I want to do tomorrow, not pushing too far in the future, not yearning for that self that's going to be able to do all of the things again, but instead really, truly enjoying what's available to me right in this moment, and being good at recovery. And I think being good at recovery is really, really important. And so I'm thinking now about, as my physical capabilities are increasing and my workouts are ramping up, which does feel great, because being able to get my heart rate up and being able to get that heavy breath, that's really where I start to feel good. And I can really feel the work and the impact on my mental health, my physical health. So that for me, those cardio workouts are everything. And it was really, really hard for me to raise my heart rate when my body was moving a little slower. I was still enjoying that process in that moment. But now, that I'm able to do that, it's even more lovely and wonderful for me. So that's the step that I'm in, and just really thinking about, okay, now that I'm able to get that heavy breath, feeling so grateful for it, and really exploring what I can do, but also thinking about every time I do that, I'm creating a situation in which there's a recovery container that I also need to be in. And so then I've started thinking about, of course, how does this apply to the other areas of my life? And so I would encourage you, please make goals, have dreams, have things that you want to do for yourself. Invest your precious resources, your time, your money into those things so that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish in your life and make things good for you, make things good for other people. I really want that for you. But then, when you experience things in that journey that you didn't anticipate, work with those things. Those things were always there for you. They were always meant for you. They're a part of your path. They are not things that are in the way of the goal. In some regards, hitting those moments are the goal. It's not even about getting to the finish line. It's about every moment that leads up to the finish line and living that moment as fully and completely and presently as you possibly can. And so one of the career analogies really is that our company got acquired a little over a year ago now by Yelp. And there's a few things that happened in the course of that acquisition. And so really it's sort of like, okay, well, now the goal has changed. So I'm still working on growing the business, bringing on more partners, bringing on more shops with our excellent marketing, improving our business operations, thinking about our revenue operations and how that works. I'm still working on all of that. But then, we also changed some of the goals. Some of the goals were simply to integrate, to collaborate better, to slow down and bring people at Yelp along on the journey because they're not as familiar with RepairPal and how it operates. It's been about learning, oh, hey, there's different ways of doing this than the way that we were doing it before, particularly as we're now part of a public company and we need to operate as such. And so it's been a level up. And then for me in my career as well, because, I was chief revenue officer at RepairPal. And when I brought into Yelp, I was brought in as senior director of business operations and strategy. And so, you experience title deflation is what it's called, right? When you get into a larger company environment, you experience title deflation. And so one of the things that I tried to negotiate when the company was first acquired is I tried to negotiate becoming a vice president as part of the acquisition. Now, my boss, the CEO of RepairPal, was slotted in as vice president and general manager. And they said, oh, vice president working for a vice president. We don't know about this. We're going to bring you in as senior director. And, that's kind of that. And of course, you want the acquisition to go through, so you accept it. And that could feel, again, like a moment where I accomplished something and then I had to take a step back. But rather, I thought, okay, how do I fully occupy this? And then how do I think about, again, moving forward? And I'm here to tell you that because I did take that step back and away from the executive table, there's certain meetings and things like that are for VP and above, as you can imagine at Yelp. Those are not available to me as a senior director. I thought, how do I take a step back, fully occupy this role while, now working toward the next thing? And I'm here to tell you, it is a very sweet part of the journey to have taken that title deflation, to have worked with it, to have occupied it and expanded it. And then to have also accomplished being now, once again, a vice president of now business operations and strategy at Yelp, which is an acknowledgement that I recently got because it was clear that that is something that I should have. And so even though there aren't very many people where there are VPs working for VPs, that is something that I was able to accomplish. And it feels so much sweeter to me to be celebrating this with all of you. So cheers to that. But also to have really worked for it and demonstrated it. It wasn't something that I got because I had it before and I moved and they wanted to keep me in the same spot. It's something where they said, okay, well, we're going to put you in this role. And then it became clear or manifest because of the leadership that I was exhibiting and the things that I was doing and the ways in which I was operating, that I had earned it in this totally new environment. And it really is meaningful to me because Yelp is a company of values. And so for me to be able to demonstrate those values sufficiently in a much larger company environment and to once again earn an executive title, it's just so much sweeter. And so as I think about my physical journey, as I think about my mental journey, as I think about my spiritual journey, my leadership journey, 2025 was a year of so many lessons and so many things to take forward. So as we move into conquering 2026, hopefully together, I'd love the opportunity to work with different members of my community this year. Hopefully some new ones, hopefully some ones that work together with me in 2025 will continue this journey in 2026. Let's think about how, when we're presented with things that we didn't expect, to treat them as opportunities, to treat them as moments of recovery, to treat them as things that we can soak in a little bit, so that when we move forward, it's all the sweeter.